just yesterday. Ben Jealous, a Democratic nominee for governor of Maryland, joins us now. Ben, good morning to you, my brother.
Hey, good morning, Mark. It's good to be here with you, man.
Of course, always a pleasure to have you with us as well. Yeah, Tom Perez and I were just talking about you yesterday, and
Yeah,
getting you as much support as you need. How's the campaign going down there, man?
the campaign's going well, man. We are building a strong ground game all across the state. We just opened up more than a dozen offices. We've got at least 4 dozen organizers on the ground, which is 4 times more than the party had on the ground 4 years ago, and on track with what we did 8 years ago. And that's important because our goal is to repeat what we did 8 years ago when we turned out more than 1 million Democrats and like-minded independents across the state. We do that, we win this governor's race, we hold on to the Democratic supermajority, and frankly, we make it possible for us to finally fully fund our schools, keep the broken promise on the casino money that will use that to help fully fund our schools, get to legalize cannabis for adult use and take the money from that, provide universal pre-K, frankly, just get back to doing big things again for the working families of our state.
And as you've been saying, the bottom line is for you in November, and Tom and I were discussing this yesterday. It is turnout after all, isn't it?
Absolutely. We Democrats swung by about 200,000 votes between 2010 and 2014. There's a drop-off of about 200,000 votes, which is the only way that Hogan got into office. Republicans in Maryland have never gotten more than 900,000 votes for their candidate. Meanwhile, Democrats in Maryland the last time we won, 2010, we turned out more than 1 million for ours.
Mm-hmm.
So in our state, it's always about turnout, and we have a lot of swing voters. And what you do in those types of situations is you don't take anybody for granted. You get organizers out in the field IDing those voters and making sure that they turn out, and that's what we're focused on right now.
Yeah, that's very, 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 very important. Let me just ask you this: in terms of what the Democratic Party did this weekend, do those reforms, do they play? And if they don't, fine. I'm just curious. Do they play in your race? Are voters going to be talking about that? Hey, the Democratic Party has done these major reforms. It's taken away some of the power of super delegates. Is that an issue for voters in Maryland right now?
Yeah, that has not come up on the campaign trail this year. I think it probably will 2 years from now, right?
Okay.
After thinking about the presidential.
Okay.
But it has not been it has not been an issue for 2018 for us.
Okay. I was just curious about that. I noticed too, folks, if you're on our Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube, make it plain. You can see us talking to Ben Jealous. Also, we're on Instagram at Minister with 2 T's. What was it, yesterday, the day before? You were in Druid Heights walking with the mayor of Baltimore.
Yeah, we were out, and it's. I think both of us remained inspired by the leadership of Governor Schaefer. Governor Schaefer, of course, had been both mayor of Baltimore and then went on to be governor of the state. And he was known as mayor for just walking the city all the time. And as governor, similarly showing up anywhere and listening to people and then making sure that their concerns were followed up on. And it was empowering and heartbreaking to be out there, at dusk, listening to folks. These are the same streets that my cousin, literally I was with my cousin who grew up 3 blocks away from where we were. And this is where I spent a good chunk of every summer as a kid. And what was heartbreaking was things feel like they've gotten harder in many ways. The violence has gone higher than it was in the late 70s and the early 80s when I was on those particular blocks. And talking to folks saying, well, how are we gonna make it possible for kids to earn money so they can afford to go to school? And they're talking about kids 11, 12, 13, 14 years old,
Mm-hmm.
right? Um, and the way in which the drug trade has just destabilized their families and left children as the breadwinners for parents.
Mm.
And we were out there with with folks who have recently got a job or recently been able to buy a home right in their same neighborhood because of what the local CDC is doing in Druid Heights. So there was just lots of triumph, lots of struggle, and yet you could see how if we actually decide to make every school in Maryland a good school, make it
Mm-hmm.
possible for everybody to get health care, including mental health care, and focus on bringing jobs back to neighborhoods that have long been neglected, and frankly build better housing in neighborhoods that have long been neglected, that we could begin to build a pathway out of poverty for families and get back to West Baltimore being a doorway to opportunity like it was for my family when my mom was growing up in the housing projects and the tenements nearby where we were walking, and frankly, even decades later when my cousins were doing the same.
Yeah. What kind of jobs? And we had touched on this before. Ben Jealous with us, folks. 24 minutes past the hour. What kind of jobs would you envision being the kinds of jobs that could be created for young men who are at risk in Baltimore, Ben? What would be the what is the up and coming industry for those who don't know in Maryland, or what could an up and coming industry end up being?
Cybersecurity, health sciences, climate change technologies, advanced manufacturing of kind of multiple types,
Mm-hmm.
all come to mind. And then also um, legalizing cannabis for adult use. Those are all areas where you could create new jobs, and we should be. I mean, down at the port, there should be an expanded free trade zone. It should not just be about shipping logistics. It should also be about manufacturing for distribution throughout the world. It's the only deep water port on the eastern seaboard,
Mm-hmm.
and there should be a lot of manufacturing there. And we should be really pushing that into the free trade zone that's there. Where the Amazon distribution center is, there should be advanced manufacturing going on, again, because it can all be distributed out right through that distribution center. And the city of Baltimore should be the capital of the green economy. We should be building turbines and factories there and floating them right down the Chesapeake Bay
Mm-hmm.
for installation, off of Ocean City, and then also shipping them across the state, for installation in the hills of Western Maryland. We should be building the blades on the eastern shore, the blades in Western Maryland, to be connected to those turbine bodies, because the shorter distance you have to move the blades, the better. That's the type of vision a governor should have, and at the same time, we should be supporting Kevin Plank and what they're doing with Under Armour in their quest to bring more health-related, kind of health gadget, Internet of Things related startups to Baltimore to be near the headquarters of UA, and all of that synergizes with creating advanced manufacturing hubs for domestic and international distribution, and creating more health sciences companies, and even creating more green technology companies. And that's what we should be doing.
And folks, I hope you all understand what Ben is saying. We have to do this because our greatest investment is in our everyday citizens. If we're not providing more opportunities, as Ben is offering, for education and then jobs, because at the end of the day, we all have to. We don't make it if we don't go to school, and if we don't then get the kind of education we need to get a job to support our families. That's pretty much what life is all about. That I mean that's just fundamental. Nobody's just living off of air and water alone. Uh, we've got to take care of our families, and if there's not a candidate talking about that and doing that, that person is of no use to us. So what Ben is talking about is very practical and also very doable. Ben, our brother's not talking about anything that's so that's too idealistic or too lofty. These are just things we have to roll up our sleeves and get done. And really, it also requires someone who cares about us and someone who cares about people being able to do for themselves and provide for their families. I just think that's pretty fundamental, Ben.
Look, absolutely, Mark, and it's fundamental and it's universal. What you see in West Baltimore, you will see in Western Maryland, but it may appear to be a film negative. The dysfunction, the poverty, the pain that you see amongst black people in West Baltimore, you see amongst white people in Western Maryland,
right,
Cumberland. And let's be really explicit. As you know, my mom's black, my dad's white. I'm raising a young black boy, my son, and as a father, as a black dad of a black son, you worry about him being killed by somebody else.
Yeah.
But as the son of an older white man, you worry about him killing himself. The highest rates of homicide are black boys and men 15 to 30, but the highest rates of suicide are white men over 50. And what do they both have in common? Homicide and suicide flourish in communities that are losing hope.
Yeah.
And we're losing hope in rural Maryland, in urban Maryland, in suburban Maryland, faster than we like to recognize. But what laid it bare is the opioid crisis that has spiraled out of control under this governor.
Yeah.
He ran on it as a crisis. He then didn't do anything about it for 2 years. He then declared it a crisis, didn't do a whole lot that year, and still wants to pretend that incarceration is as important of a fix to this addiction crisis as rehabilitation. And it's just not the case.
Yeah.
You will never incarcerate your way out of an addiction crisis. And you will rehabilitate it, but if you don't deal with the underlying pain, it won't ever actually get better, at least not as much as it could. And so what we're saying, my running mate Susie Turnbull, is listen to the people of the state. And what you'll hear is this. There's too few jobs here, wherever here is in the state. College is too high, costs too much. Our public universities cost too much. Our healthcare costs too much. Our job, our job creation is too slow. We're literally, Virginia created jobs 7 times faster than us. In Pennsylvania, 6 times faster than us. And the nation as a whole, 8 times faster than us. And wages aren't going up. They're also going up by thousands in surrounding states, but only hundreds in our state over the last few years. And so when you sit down and you say, well, how do you do that? Well, what it requires is us to resist the politics of Donald Trump, which divide people against each other, and the politics of the Republican Party, and now my opponent, Larry Hogan, who's the account that supports his campaign at the RGA is now running horrible negative ads about me seeking to divide the people of the state. And what we're saying is we have an alternative, which is we just recognize that probably 80% of the kitchen table problems in any corner of the state are the same. And we come together, white, black, brown, Asian American, Native American, and we actually pursue policies that have promised to really transform opportunity for our families. Mm-hmm. You think about what makes you proud to be a Democrat. I know in my family, it ultimately goes back to FDR, through women like Barbara Jordan and Barbara Mikulski and men like RFK and MLK. You ultimately end up with FDR. What made FDR so great to my grandma and my mom and my dad, family on both sides, was when times were toughest, he taught us that we had to think big, that we had to seek solutions at least as big as the problems we were facing. And if we did that, we could leap forward.
Yeah.
So that's what we're saying in this campaign. We got some big problems facing the working families of our state. More of them we have in common than we don't. We're going to seek big solutions to those problems. And what does that mean? Finally, fully fund our schools. Admit that we can get the healthcare costs under control, but it means trying to do it the way that they've done it in other countries, like every other Western country, including Canada. And it means that that we have to recognize that it's our growing businesses across the state that create most jobs, and put our government on the side of them at least as much as we're willing to be on the side of any corporation that wants to move here.
Yeah.
So that's what we're focused on.
Ben Jealous, folks, running for governor of Maryland, election day. How many days are we out for election day, Ben?
I believe it is 70 days as of today. This is 10 weeks out.
Okay. And folks, we need everybody to go to benjealous.com, right?
That's right. You can go to benjealous.com, and we have an updated link there for volunteering. It shows you where the offices are. There are more than a dozen offices across the state. You can walk into those offices now and volunteer on site, pick up turf, and go out and walk that day. You don't have to wait for a scheduled walk. You can pick up sheets and sit down right there with your cell phone and call folks across the state and identify them to vote. And we need you. We're going to win this with people. The governor's running a negative air war. We're going to beat that back with a positive ground campaign. That means that we need you to get involved. It means we need you to give. You can do both at benjealous.com.
All right, folks, we invite you to go to benjealous.com.